Hello everyone, this is Leaders Like Us. I'm your host Jocelyn Reina, and thank you Cans for being our series sponsor. Today I have an amazing guest with us, Ellen Hornady. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So just to get started, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I actually thought you were from Grand Island and you were telling me you weren't. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey, where you're from, how long you've been here, and then why are you still here in Grand Island?
Okay. I'm a farm girl from Delta, Ohio. It's a small town in northwest Ohio. Grew up there, went to college in southeast Ohio, Ohio University, got 2 degrees, Bachelor in Business and a Master's in Health Services Administration. Then moved to Columbus, Ohio, ended up moving to Colorado, lived in the Denver area for about 10 years, had my kids there. My career was in human resources management.
Okay.
And so did that for a while. My last job was with Best Buy. I was a district human resources manager covering all of Colorado and New Mexico, traveling around to all their locations and hiring and training managers and helping them with employee relations issues and all that fun stuff. And then when I was in my 30s, had kids, and that's when I stopped working and got involved with a food bank in Parker, Colorado, where we lived.
Okay.
So that was my first steps into kind of the nonprofit world, and then moved here in 2006. So I've been here for 18 years now.
Okay.
And have been involved in working with nonprofits and boards and committees and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. So how did you get involved? You know, you've been doing it for a while now, and every time I hear people talk about boards or being on a board, like your name always comes up. And so how did you get involved, or how did you know, like, what boards you wanted to serve on, or kind of what you wanted to do? You know, like there's some boards, you know, that are more like hands-on working, you know, tabling and whatnot. And there's other one that's more like strategic, like fundraising and stuff like that. How did you figure out, like, kind of what kind of boards you were interested or what you wanted to do?
I've done kind of both kinds of boards.
Okay.
But starting out in Colorado, it was an all-volunteer organization, a local food bank, and I just kind of was interested in like the human needs side of things, helping people who were struggling, and got involved there and actually got involved in some leadership there. I ended up vice president on that board and led kind of some, like we did like holiday food baskets, and so I led some of that kind of stuff. And then when we got here, I knew I wanted to get involved in something. My first board was Hope Harbor.
Okay.
And so I was actually approached about that. Actually, Margie Hornady recommended me for that board when there was an opening, and got involved there, which I loved because that was also kind of the human services side of thing and helping people who are kind of down on their luck and need some structure in their lives and some guidance. And so got involved there, served on that board for 6 years. I was board president for 3 years, helped to lead 2 of their capital campaigns.
Awesome.
And then got involved in some other boards. I'm trying to remember what my next one was. I was on the St. Francis Hospital board for a while. I served on, most recently, Leadership Unlimited. I just turned off of that last year. I still continue to serve on the Summit Committee and the Board Development Committee. Greater Grand Island Community Foundation, I've served on that board. I was board chair for that one for a while. Nebraska Arts Council, I served on that for 6 years. And that's a governor-appointed position, so that was kind of a whole different scenario. I've served on the College Park Board.
Okay.
And so some of them have been, like I would say Hope Harbor and Leadership Unlimited have been more working boards, where committees are very involved in the fundraising and the event planning and the different things like that, whereas like College Park, that was like more of a quarterly meeting. Same thing with the Nebraska Arts Council, more of a quarterly meeting. And then you can get involved in committees and do more work that way. With the Arts Council, I got involved with some of the grant distribution, like either being on those distribution committees or chairing those committees. So you could kind of get as involved as you wanted to. So I've just kind of had a mix
Yeah.
of both
Yes.
types of boards.
Okay. I knew you were involved, but then you started naming all of them, and I was like, okay, she really was involved. And so right now you're not like serving on a board, right? And
Yeah.
so what like would you say is, how do you like have boundaries? If people are like, oh my gosh, Ellen, I heard you're not serving on a board. Like, do you want to serve on here? Like, how do you have that boundary of,
I've had to
being able
learn.
to say no?
I've had to learn that. It's definitely a learned skill because it is hard to say no. But one of the things I also do is every year for Leadership Tomorrow class, I present on board roles and responsibilities. And I've been doing that for over 10 or 11 years now, I think. And so one of the things I talk about is when you're deciding what you want to get involved in, it needs to be something that you can be passionate about the mission so that you're actually going to enjoy serving, and it's going to be something you're going to want to spend your time doing, and you can get behind, and you can be out in the community talking about it and advocating for it. So you've got to be careful what you say yes to and what you say no to, and be careful to not over commit yourself.
Yeah.
And since I don't have a paid job,
Yeah.
it was a little easier for me to get involved in more things and kind of jump in, 100%. But the great thing about Grand Island is a lot of employers encourage their employees to get involved, and so that's awesome that they let people, spend some of their time doing that. So, but if you're going to take time away from your family and time away from work and time away from everything else, it needs to be something that you care about and something that you can give 100% to, so that you're not just a seat on a board that's not contributing. You want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're contributing if you're going to get involved.
So talking about that, right? Like, let's think of an individual that works full time and they have a family. What would you say from your experience on working on boards or like doing that presentation for Leadership Tomorrow class? What would you say is the number, or it kind of varies per person, like 1 to 2 boards to be involved in, or it just kind of varies, I guess, depending on the board that you're in?
Yeah, I think it varies depending on the type of board and your personal situation, whether you have a job outside of the home, whether you've got, like when I had younger kids, it was more challenging than when they got older and were more self-sufficient. Once they got into school, then that was easier because then my day was free to, to do some of that stuff. So it depends on your personal situation, depends on how much time is involved with that board. So before you join a board, you want to make sure you're asking all the right questions. What's the time commitment expected? When are your meetings? Are you able to even make that work with your schedule? How much of a working board is it? The last 6 years I was on 3 boards, which I would say is a lot. I probably won't do that again. But one of them was more of a working board, and 2 of them were less so.
Okay.
They weren't as much, so I was able to balance that. But yeah, it just kind of depends on that. But you got to make sure you ask all the right questions before you say yes to something, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
But you learn from that, and now you're able to share that experience with others. Like, don't over, commit yourself, or and I think sometimes when you start on a board and you're like, I just want to do everything, or when you get introduced to boards or nonprofits, you're like, I just want to save the world and do everything, right? But there is a balance of like, am I just having a seat there, or am I actually contributing to?
One of the exercises we go through too when I talk to the Leadership Tomorrow class is how do you balance all of those things? And so I have them kind of write down what are all the things that are important to you in your life.
Okay.
And then we go through what are all the things that you actually spend your time on. What's on your calendar? Where's the big chunks of time that you spend? And then compare those. And if you can't connect the dots, the things that are important to you are actually making it onto your calendar, then you've got some adjustment to do. Like if it's not making it on your calendar, maybe you need to put it on your calendar.
Yeah.
Like if it's one-on-one time with your kids, maybe that needs to be a date on your calendar with your kid, so you're making sure that those things that are really important to you are actually making time. And then we can always spend less time on our phone and less time doing, mindless things that, just waste our time.
Yeah.
So there's ways to find that
to
balance.
be able to. No, I think that's a good idea because I feel like I'm like a planner person. Like I use calendars and I have to
Me
put
too.
it even
and
if
Post-it notes and
yes,
lists and yeah.
even if I have to like if I want to read 30 minutes a day, like I literally
Yeah.
put it on my calendar like read 30 minutes
Yep.
because in my head I'm like, oh, it's just 30 minutes. I'll find it.
Right.
But then it's like 9 p.m. and I'm like, well, it's time to go to sleep, but I didn't have 30 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Even like doing that, like I feel like it's helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Like being able
And not
to.
everybody's built that way, but I am. I'm a planner. I
Yes.
like my calendar.
Yeah,
I
I'm
like
always
my
like-
reminders on my phone and
Send a calendar
that, yeah.
invite, tell me the location. Like sometimes people are like, oh, we'll figure it out or we're just seeing. And I'm like, no, I need to know right now.
yeah.
So earlier we were kind of talking like, what does it look like for someone like if they were working and had a family and getting involved, right? But as someone that, you know, maybe watching this video and they're a stay-at-home mom and they want to get more involved, you know, how should they do that, or what prompted you to be able to be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to be part of committees. I want to serve on boards. You know, when my kids are in school, like I have this time. Like how did you get to do that?
Okay. Well, I was a career woman until I was in my 30s, and then
Yes.
I was a stay-at-home mom, which is the best job in the world, but I was climbing the walls after a while. And it's like, I need to get out of the house and have adult interaction of some sort. So that was when I got involved with the food bank in Colorado. And, you know, once I waited a year, Abby was a year old before I started doing that, and did daycare for her just a couple of days a week, so I could have those days to do something for me and for my community. So I got involved that way, and then I also was able to bring them with me sometimes. And so it just kind of depends on what you get involved in, whether or not that's an opportunity. But when I was on the Hope Harbor board, I didn't bring kids to board meetings, but sometimes for committee meetings, I drug them along and stuck them in the corner with an iPad or whatever. But so they've always just kind of been brought up, you know, that's just part of what you do is you give back to your community. So I just needed to get involved in something for me, but also it's important to me to you know, I've been blessed, so I want to be able to give back and do something meaningful. So,
Yeah.
But then, you know, once they start preschool, then that gives you a little bit of time when, you know, you can do your own thing. When they start school, that gives you some time if you're not working, that you can kind of find some things to get involved in. And it doesn't have to be a board. There's lots of organizations that have committee work or fundraisers that you can work on and get involved that way. And that might even be, you know, your first step into getting involved with an organization. You might then get asked to join their board or things like that. But
Or even the schools, right? You mentioned like you were involved.
when my
with
kids were in
the-
elementary school, I was involved with the PTA, and I took my turn as PTA president. And then also volunteered in their classrooms weekly. And the teachers like that until about third grade, and then they don't really want the parents in the classroom anymore, apparently. I also did junior achievement. When my kids were in elementary, I did the junior achievement thing for, I think, Alex's class all the way through. And then also for Alex, which Abby didn't benefit from this because Youth Philanthropy Board didn't start until she graduated. But Alex's class, he got to go through. They both got to go through Youth Leadership Tomorrow, but Alex got to go through also Youth Philanthropy Board, and I was one of the mentors when he was involved with that. So I've always tried to kind of get involved with, you know, something that they're involved with too. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for all that you're doing.
Yeah.
I also had seen that I do the farmers market on the weekends, so I'm always like following also to see who else is coming to the market. And I had seen that you were like one of the sponsors for the farmers market. Like, what prompted you to, you know, do that and help out with something that's starting new in our community?
yeah. So Ryan Bartles is my significant other, so we decided to do that just to support it. It's just exciting to have like a real farmers market finally come to Grand Island, because we like to travel, and one of the things we like to do when we travel is if there's a local farmers market, we like to go to them. And so it's just fun and exciting to get like one with lots of different variation and different things. And love your candies, by the way.
Thank you.
They're
Thank
good.
you.
They're really good. But yeah, it's just another cool thing that Grand Island has been needing for a long time that we want to support and make sure it continues.
So talking about cool things, the Epic Museum is coming, and I know a little bit about it, but can you tell me more? And are you involved with that as well?
Yeah, the Epic Discovery Center.
Okay.
It was rebranded as that. It was originally Grand Island Children's Museum. I think it's about 5 years or so ago that the steering committee started, and I was a part of the steering committee. And it takes like up to 10 years to get like a serious children's museum, like a world-class children's museum, from just the planning thought phases to actually opening. And so they're about 5 years in, and of course COVID, delayed that significantly. But it's going to be a STEAM-based museum, and so the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math kinds of activities and programming. And it's going to be in the old Armory building over by Ryder Park. And they're in the middle of their capital campaign right now. So I was on the steering committee, and then they formed their 501c3, and they now have a board that I'm not on the board, but I'm an advisor for their current capital campaign.
Okay.
So they're working on raising the money so that they can get going with that. They've hired world-class world-recognized museum planners and designers, and
I love that.
working with local architect and developer, and working on getting that done. They got a $5 million economic development grant
That's awesome.
that is a matching grant. So by the end of this year, they need to raise another $5 million, which they're well on their way. They've got over $3 million, and they're working on, they've got a campaign committee that's
awesome.
working hard and writing grants, and they're on track to meet that goal by the end of this
Yeah.
year. And then I think overall, so that would be 10 million, and then they'll have another 3 million to raise after that. So
That's exciting, because I feel
Yeah.
like living in Nebraska, like in the summer, there's things to do, right? For kids. But
Right.
then in the winter, like, where do they go or what do they do? And I think it's cool, the things that you said, like there'll be different activities.
yeah,
It's not just like, oh, here you go, like explore. Like there's things for kids to do.
right. And a lot of children's museums are more for the younger kids, which the main area, like they'll have a 2-story climbing structure, and they'll have all kinds of cool stuff, and they'll have like parties or rooms where you can have birthday parties, and they'll have all of that. But then they're also going to have tween and teen space, because there's a real need. When they were doing their feasibility study, that was one of the things that was identified as a real need in this community, is things for kids of all ages to do to keep them busy and active and out of trouble. And
Yes.
so they'll have their own kind of space and cool things to do. So
That's awesome.
it'll be good for the community and good for the economy, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I don't have kids, but I'm excited to see all of
I'll
that.
have grandkids someday, I hope. So that's
That's
what
what
I'm
you,
thinking, yeah.
yes. So what keeps you here in Grand Island? In the beginning we talked about, and I didn't know that you were from Ohio. What
Yeah.
keeps you here and just keeps you motivated to keep giving back to the community?
Okay. It's become home. I've been here 18 years now, and I've gotten so involved in the community, and I've got friends here. I've got a life here, and I don't know where else I would go.
Yeah.
But home was a town of 3,000 where I don't know what I would do there. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, and there's a chance that my kids will eventually end up back here. So, I don't know. I like to travel a lot.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to be here all the time.
Yeah.
But it's a great community, and there's a lot going on here, and I don't know, it's just become home for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ellen, for your time today. I know you're busy, so thank you for taking time to be with here with us today. And again, thank you, Kens, for being a serious sponsor. My name is Jocelyn Reina, and this is Leaders Like Us.